I cried, there is no justice, as they led me out the door. And the judge said, this isn't a court of justice, son, this is a court of law.
Land of the Blind is a dark political satire that left me deeply shaken, but afterward I found myself liking it less and less. Comparisons to V for Vendetta are inevitable, as both films are very political in nature. Land of the Blind is a well-made, emotional film with great impact, but V for Vendetta is the better film for presenting a more realistic, complete depiction of a dystopian regime. At the beginning of Land of the Blind, Thorne, Donald Sutherland, is a writer turned revolutionary thrown in prison for writing a play that criticized the government. Joe, Ray Fiennes, a prison guard, comes to respect Thorne for his intelligence and courage, and assists in staging a coup against President-for-Life Maximilian II. But after Thorne seizes power, Joe is sent to a re-education camp himself for speaking out against the new regime, which is just as oppressive and authoritarian as the old. Frankly, I don't see it. The initial leader, Maximilian II, is nicknamed Junior by much of the populace. Everyone seems to know that Junior is a ridiculous leader, as he's concerned only with enjoying himself and directing trashy action movies. Childish and self-obsessed, Junior is like Michael Bay if he became a despotic leader. This is part of the point, but the silliness of Maximilian's character makes him hard to take seriously as a dictator. Maximilian's advisors inform him on how to stamp out dissent and keep him popular, but these moves are talked about but rarely shown. Maximilian's prisons are squalid and the prisoners endure cruel, inhumane treatment, but the prisons are really the only major aspect of his regime that we see. When Thorne seizes power, the man's influence is more apparent. Thorne bans action movies, sends doctors to re-education camps, and forces women to wear burqa-like garments in public, but these are all pretty arbitrary decisions. Instead of prisons, we see re-education camps, which seek to subdue and brainwash dissidents rather than just lock them up. As such, the re-education camps feel more crucial to Thorne's rule. Even so, the re-education camps, brutal though they may be, and a few arbitrary policies are the only evidence we have for the oppression in Thorne's regime. For a film that attempts to illustrate the old saying, "absolute power corrupts absolutely," Land of the Blind doesn't show us much corruption. In V for Vendetta, on the other hand, the fascist government of near-future Britain is a regime with real force and presence. The Northfire Party has a big brother-like omnipresence, with a portrait of its leader, High Chancellor Adam Sutler, in every household, and Sutler communicating with his ministers through an enormous screen. The regime of V for Vendetta is technologically advanced, unlike Land of the Blind's backward setting of every country, and exerts video and audio surveillance over much of the country. The government has a blacklist of prohibited media, and V's mansion is full of so-called objectionable materials. Secret police, known as the Fingermen, patrol the streets and capture dissidents and social deviants in the middle of the night. The Northfire Party persecutes Jews, Muslims, homosexuals, and ethnic minorities, and anyone regarded as an enemy is sent to concentration camps. The party also controls the media, censoring and distorting information to cover up incidents and present the government in a good light. The party gains further support from the Church of England. Also, Northfire rose to power by developing a lethal bioweapon, releasing it into a school, water treatment plant, and subway station, framing some scapegoats, and promising the people of Britain security against this terrorist threat. A paranoid UK elected Northfire, giving it a landslide 87% of the vote. With an extreme right-wing nationalist agenda, and police, surveillance, controlled media, and a Bush-like terror scare campaign as instruments for maintaining power, the UK of V for Vendetta feels like a complete, intricate, and very efficient dictatorship. Some advice for Robert Edwards, the writer and director of Land of the Blind. When crafting a totalitarian state, showing us what it stands for and how it works is better than just giving us the insides of some prisons. Since the old and new regimes of Land of the Blind are poorly thought out and have vague inner workings, most of which we never see beyond the prisons, the film's depiction of a dictatorship is unconvincing. V for Vendetta is one of my favourite films. Before I go on, I'd like to point out the irony of John Hurt playing High Chancellor Adam Sutler, as Hurt played Winston Smith, a man working against the totalitarian regime, in the 1984 adaptation of George Orwell's 1984. Land of the Blind doesn't come close to V for Vendetta, but it's still a fairly good movie. As Joe, Ray Fiennes projects an aura of resolve and conviction, and Donald Sutherland shifts seamlessly from wise old friend to wrathful judge as Thorne. Joe's story is quite tragic. Living in an authoritarian nation, Joe wanted change, and stood by Thorne because he believed that Thorne could deliver. But Joe didn't realize that Thorne would only bring change to a different kind of oppression. The beatings and isolation techniques are brutal and disturbing, but the way Joe refuses to yield to pressure and sign his loyalty document is inspiring. There are also some surprisingly funny moments in the first half of the film. Land of the Blind is a decent movie, but it's pretty much just torture porn with a social conscience and a ton of historical references. I'd been looking forward to seeing this film for quite a while, but now I'm rather disappointed. Land of the Blind earns 3 stars out of 5. If nothing else, this movie will make you deeply sick of prisons.
This is the world we live in.